Please, just let me explain. There's nothing left to say.
No, sweetie, come back. Not today.
Grandma, wait. I want to see you.
Mommy, please, let us say goodbye.
You agreed I shouldn't see them. Just leave the box, Mom. But why?
My daughter-in-law stood in her doorway with one hand on the frame blocking me from stepping inside. "I think you need to stop visiting the children for a while," Lauren said. The box of blueberry waffles in my hands suddenly felt too heavy. Over her shoulder I saw 11-year-old Emma standing on the stairs crying silently. Noah tried to come toward me, but Lauren called him back. I looked for my son. Michael was nowhere in sight. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply set the box down and walked back to my car. But halfway home I remembered the white envelope inside my desk drawer, the one containing a bill I had quietly paid for years. That night I made one decision. I wouldn't pay it again. If you've ever had someone mistake your love for something, they were entitled to tell me what you would have done. And if stories about family betrayal, dignity, and second chances speak to you, please like and subscribe. I'd also love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Before Lauren ever told me to stop visiting my grandchildren, there had been a time when nobody questioned why I was there. In fact, there had been a time when they depended on it. My husband Robert died 6 years earlier, 3 months after our 42nd wedding anniversary. Cancer took him faster than either of us expected. One autumn we were arguing about whether the maple tree in our backyard needed trimming, and by Christmas, I was learning how quiet a house could become when only one person lived in it. For the first few months, I kept expecting to hear him. His footsteps in the hallway, the scrape of his chair against the kitchen floor, his voice calling from the living room. "Grace, did you move my glasses again?" I hadn't moved them. Robert simply never remembered where he put anything. After he died, I left his coffee mug in the cabinet exactly where he had kept it. I couldn't bring myself to move his gardening gloves for nearly a year. People told me I needed to stay busy. What they didn't understand was that grief wasn't boredom. Then there were Emma and Noah. Emma was 5 when Robert died, old enough to understand that Grandpa wasn't coming back, but young enough to believe heaven might have visiting hours. Noah was only 2. They didn't cure my grief. Children shouldn't be given that responsibility. But they reminded me there was still life on the other side of it. Michael traveled frequently for work back then. Lauren was building her interior design business from home, and there were weeks when her schedule became impossible. One Tuesday afternoon, Michael called me. "Mom, any chance you could pick Emma up from school?" Of course, that became Wednesday too, then occasionally Friday. Soon I was the name written beneath authorized pickup on school forms. But I was careful. I had spent enough years raising my own child to understand that being a grandmother did not make me a second mother. I never walked into Michael and Lauren's house without knocking. I called before visiting. If Lauren said the children couldn't have sweets before dinner, they didn't get sweets from me. If Noah threw a tantrum and Lauren corrected him, I didn't undermine her by whispering, "Grandma says it's okay." When Michael and Lauren wanted a weekend alone, I stayed home unless they invited me. I believed grandparents should add love to a child's life, not competition to a parent's. For years I thought Lauren understood that. There were ordinary little routines that became precious without any of us planning them. Wednesday afternoons were mine and Emma's. I would pick her up from school and we would stop at the public library before collecting Noah from preschool. Emma loved mysteries. She would sit cross-legged between the shelves and read the backs of books with the seriousness of a lawyer reviewing evidence. Noah preferred anything involving dinosaurs. At my house we did puzzles on the dining room table. On rainy days, I made blueberry waffles. Robert had made them when Michael was young, and after he died, I continued the tradition. Noah called them Blue Grandma waffles, which made no sense but became their official name anyway. Sometimes Lauren would arrive after 6 exhausted carrying fabric samples and apologizing for being late. "Don't apologize," I would tell her. "They've already eaten." She used to hug me. I remember that clearly now because of how difficult it became later to reconcile that woman with the one who eventually stood between me and my grandchildren. "You're saving my life," Lauren once told me. "No," I said. "I'm spending time with my grandchildren. There's a difference." And I meant it. I didn't keep score. Maybe that was one of my mistakes. The first changes were so small that I almost convinced myself I imagined them. Emma had always been affectionate. When she saw my car pull into their driveway, she would sometimes race outside before I reached the porch. One evening, when she was 9, I came over for dinner. Emma opened the door and wrapped both arms around me. "Grandma," I laughed. "Well, hello to you too." She immediately began telling me about an argument she had had with a friend at school. At dinner, Emma continued the story. "I told Grandma everything already," she said. Lauren looked up from her plate. "Everything?" Emma nodded. "Grandma understands me." The room changed. Not dramatically. Lauren didn't slam down her fork or say anything cruel. She smiled. But I had lived long enough to recognize a smile that stopped at someone's mouth. "I understand you too," Lauren said. Emma was oblivious. "I know, Mom." Then she went back to eating. I remember looking at Michael. He hadn't noticed anything. Or perhaps he had already developed the habit of pretending not to. A few weeks later, Noah fell on the playground and scraped his knee. The school called Lauren first, but she was meeting a client and couldn't answer. They called me next. I picked him up. By the time Lauren arrived, Noah was sitting on my kitchen counter while I cleaned the scrape. He saw his mother and said, "Grandma made it stop hurting." It was the kind of thing an 8-year-old says. But Lauren's expression tightened. "I could have handled it," she said. I looked at her. "I know. They should have kept trying me." "They did. You were working." Her face softened immediately. "I know. Sorry. Long day." I accepted that explanation because I wanted to. There were other moments. Emma asking whether she could sleep at my house and Lauren immediately saying no. Noah wanting me to attend a school event followed by Lauren explaining they wanted just parents this time. None of those decisions were unreasonable by themselves. Parents are allowed to want time with their children. So I adjusted. I never wanted Lauren to believe I was competing with her. Once I even mentioned it to Michael. We were standing beside my car after Sunday dinner. "Is Lauren uncomfortable with how much time I spend with the kids?" Michael frowned. "What, no? I've noticed a few things." He sighed. "Mom, Lauren's just stressed. Her business has been crazy. If she wants more space, she can tell me. You're overthinking it." That was Michael's favorite phrase whenever a conversation threatened to become uncomfortable. "You're overthinking it." So I let it go. Then one afternoon, Emma and I were sitting at my dining room table working on a 1,000-piece puzzle. Without looking up, she asked, "Grandma, does Mom think I love you too much?" My hand stopped over the puzzle. "What makes you ask that?" Emma shrugged, but children have a particular way of pretending something doesn't matter when it matters very much. She said, "I always want to tell you things first." I chose my next words carefully. "Your mother loves you more than anything in this world." "I know. And you never have to divide love into pieces, sweetheart. Loving me doesn't take anything away from loving your mom." Emma finally looked at me. "Then why does she get mad?" I had no answer that wouldn't put a child in the middle of an adult problem. So I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Your mother isn't mad at you." At the time, I believed that was enough. I believed patience would smooth whatever rough edge had developed between Lauren and me. I believed if I respected every reasonable boundary, Lauren would eventually understand that I had never wanted her place. What I didn't understand yet was that Lauren wasn't afraid I wanted to become Emma and Noah's mother. She was beginning to resent the fact that they needed me at all. And there was another reason my presence had become woven so deeply into their family, one Lauren herself didn't fully understand yet. It had nothing to do with school pickups, nothing to do with blueberry waffles. It had to do with the house they lived in, and with something. Michael had quietly allowed me to keep paying long after everyone else had stopped asking questions. The house Michael and Lauren lived in had always looked like proof that they were doing well. That was part of what made everything that happened later so complicated. 6 years earlier, shortly before Robert died, Michael and Lauren had been renting a townhouse outside Richmond. It was comfortable enough, but Emma was approaching school age, and Michael had become obsessed with getting her into what he called a neighborhood where we can stay. After Robert passed, their search became more serious. One Sunday afternoon, Michael came to my house carrying his laptop. "Mom, I want to show you something." He opened a listing for a 2-story brick colonial in a quiet subdivision west of Richmond. The house had 4 bedrooms, a wide front porch, and a backyard bordered by tall oak trees. The kitchen had been renovated recently, and the elementary school was less than 10 minutes away. I could immediately understand why they loved it. "Lauren already picked where the Christmas tree would go," Michael said. I smiled. "So I assume you're buying it." His expression changed. "We're trying." That word told me there was more to the story. Michael explained that they had been pre-approved, but between the down payment, closing costs, moving expenses, and the cash reserves the lender expected them to maintain, they were stretched much thinner than they had anticipated. "How thin?" I asked. He looked embarrassed. "About $28,000 thin." I leaned back in my chair. Michael rushed to explain. "We're not asking you for it. I just needed to talk to somebody." I had spent 31 years working in payroll administration. Numbers didn't frighten me, and neither did uncomfortable conversations about money. "Show me everything," I said. He did. Income, savings, debt, estimated payment, property taxes, insurance. I asked questions Michael clearly wished I wouldn't ask. Finally, I closed the laptop. "You can afford the monthly payment," I said, "but you don't have enough cushion." That's what I told Lauren, and she thinks if we don't do it now, we'll never get into that neighborhood. I understood her fear. I also understood what a house could mean to a young family. Robert and I had bought our first home when Michael was 3. The interest rate had been terrible, the carpet had been orange, and the furnace sounded like an airplane preparing for takeoff. But it had been ours. 3 weeks later, I asked Michael to come back. I handed him a check. He stared at it. "Mom, take it." His eyes widened when he saw the amount. "I can't." "Yes, you can. This is Dad's money." That hurt, although I knew what he meant. Part of Robert's life insurance had been deposited only weeks earlier. "It's my money now," I said quietly. "And your father spent his entire life trying to make sure this family was secure." Michael shook his head. "You need this. I have my pension. I have Social Security. I have savings. My house is paid for." He still resisted. So I made one thing very clear. This does not buy me a key to your house. It does not buy me a vote in your marriage. And it certainly does not give me the right to tell Lauren how to raise her children. Michael's face crumpled. "I'll pay you back." "No. Mom, I mean it. This is a gift." He came around the table and hugged me. For several seconds he couldn't speak. Finally he whispered, "I will never forget this." At the time I believed him. Lauren cried when she found out. She came to my house the following evening carrying flowers. "You don't know what this means to us," she said. Actually, I did. It meant Emma could start kindergarten in the school district they wanted. It meant Noah would have a backyard. It meant Michael could stop scrolling through real estate listings at midnight. I was happy for them. For a while, everything went exactly as we hoped. They closed on the house. Lauren painted the dining room twice because she hated the first shade. Michael built a swing set in the backyard and complained for 3 straight weekends about the instructions. Emma learned to ride her bicycle in the driveway. Noah took his first real swim in the neighborhood pool. Life settled. Then costs began climbing. Property assessments increased. Insurance premiums rose sharply after several storms affected rates across the region. Their escrow calculations changed, and what had once looked manageable became increasingly uncomfortable. Around the same time, Michael's company changed its commission structure. He called me one evening. "Mom, can I ask you something?" I already knew that voice. "How much?" He laughed nervously. "Why do you always know? Because I raised you." This time the problem involved a substantial annual housing-related expense tied to insurance and escrow shortages. Michael could cover it technically, but doing so would wipe out most of their emergency savings. Lauren's design business was inconsistent then, and Noah had recently needed an expensive medical procedure that their insurance did not fully cover. I thought about Emma's school, about Noah's backyard, about the stability they had only recently found. "I'll cover it this year," I said. Just this year. That was how it began. 1 year became 2, then 3. Each time the notice came, Michael and I discussed it. At first, he sounded uncomfortable accepting the help. "Next year, I'll have this handled." Then the conversations became shorter. Eventually, there were almost no conversations at all. The payments simply became part of my financial routine. I never discussed the exact amount with Lauren. That wasn't deliberate secrecy on my part. Michael handled most of their household financial paperwork, while Lauren managed groceries, the children's activities, and expenses connected to her business. She knew I had helped with the house. She knew I had given them money at closing. I assumed she knew more than she apparently did. One Thanksgiving, I overheard something that should have made me pay closer attention. Lauren was talking with her sister in the kitchen. "We're finally in a really good place financially," she said. "Michael's income is strong and my business is growing. We've done a good job building this life." There was nothing wrong with being proud, but I remember standing in the hallway with a stack of dessert plates and thinking about the notice I had paid less than 2 months earlier. I said nothing. It wasn't my place to embarrass her. Later that evening, I found Michael taking out the trash. "Does Lauren know I'm still covering that expense?" I asked. He froze for half a second. "She knows you help." That wasn't my question. Michael tied the trash bag tighter. "She doesn't really get into that part of the finances." "Maybe she should. I'll explain it." "Michael." He sighed. "Mom, please. Everything is good right now." There it was again. The avoidance. I should have insisted. Instead, I let him handle his marriage. That was the boundary I believed I was respecting. Over time, Michael's language changed. The first year he had said, "Mom is helping us with this." Later I heard him say, "Mom covers that." And eventually, when I once asked whether he had received the new insurance documents, he simply said, "Yeah, you handle that one. You handle that one." 4 words. I remember them now because gratitude rarely disappears all at once. Sometimes it erodes so gradually you don't notice until generosity has been transformed into responsibility. Still, I kept paying. Not because Michael demanded it. Not because Lauren asked. And certainly not because I believed they owed me access to Emma and Noah. I paid because I could afford to, and because I told myself that every dollar helped keep my grandchildren in a stable home near their school and friends. What I didn't realize was that my quiet help had created 2 completely different realities. In Lauren's reality, she and Michael had built their lifestyle independently. In Michael's reality, his mother would always be there if the numbers didn't work. And in mine, I was simply helping my family. Those 3 realities could coexist only as long as nobody asked the wrong question. Eventually, Lauren would demand that I step away from her family, and Michael would stand behind her and let her do it. But neither of them had yet considered what stepping away actually meant, because affection wasn't the only thing I had quietly been bringing into that house. There was also a bill Lauren barely knew existed, a bill Michael had stopped worrying about years earlier, and a bill that one day would finally land where it had belonged all along, on their table. The first rule sounded reasonable. That was why I agreed to it without argument. Lauren called me on a Monday evening about 2 months after Emma asked whether her mother thought she loved me too much. "Grace, can we talk about something?" "Of course." She hesitated. "I think it would be better if you called before coming over." I was surprised because I already did that most of the time, but I also knew there had been afternoons when I dropped off a book Emma wanted or returned something the children had left at my house. "If I've been coming by too often, I'm sorry," I said. "It's not that. We're just trying to create healthier boundaries." There was that word. Boundaries. It would become one of Lauren's favorites. "All right," I said. "I'll call first. Thank you for understanding." And I did understand. Their house was their home. Michael and Lauren were the parents. I had no desire to become the kind of mother-in-law who treated her son's front door as if it were still his childhood bedroom. So I adjusted. For several weeks, I called before every visit. Then one Wednesday I phoned around noon. I was thinking of stopping by after I pick up a few groceries, I told Lauren. I found that book Emma wanted. There was a pause. Today isn't really good. No problem. How about Friday? Sure. Friday morning I called again. Lauren sounded irritated. Grace, you don't have to check in the same day. It would actually help if you gave us more notice. I frowned. How much notice? Maybe 24 hours? All right. I didn't argue. But 24 hours soon became something closer to 48. Then the rules expanded. One afternoon I brought homemade banana bread after Lauren had invited me over. She looked at the loaf and said, I wish you'd asked. About banana bread. We're trying to be more intentional about what the kids eat. I looked at the ingredients in my hand as if the loaf might explain what I had done wrong. I can take it home. Lauren sighed. You don't have to make it dramatic. That sentence stayed with me. Because I hadn't been dramatic. I had simply offered to remove the thing she said she didn't want. No problem, I said. I put the bread back in my bag. After that, I stopped bringing food unless she specifically requested something. Then came clothes. I had always bought Emma and Noah a few things when seasons changed. Nothing extravagant. A sweater, pajamas, sometimes sneakers if I saw a good sale. One Saturday, I found a navy cardigan I knew Emma would love. Before buying it, I texted Lauren a photograph. Would this be okay for Emma? 3 hours later, she replied, Please don't buy clothes without checking sizes with me. I stared at the message. I had checked, but I answered, Of course. I put the cardigan back. A month later, the school pickup arrangement changed. For years, my name had been on the authorized list. I didn't collect the children every day anymore, but if Lauren had a client meeting or Michael was traveling, I was available. Then Lauren called. We're taking you off the regular pickup list. My stomach tightened. Is there a reason we just want consistency? I've been picking them up for years. I know, but we're restructuring our routine. There was nothing inherently wrong with that either. That was what made the situation so difficult to explain. Any single request could be defended. Call first. Don't bring food. Don't buy clothes. Don't pick up the children. Each one sounded small. Each one could be called reasonable. But together they were forming a wall. And every time I stepped backward to respect the new boundary, Lauren moved the boundary farther away. Michael refused to see it. I finally brought it up after Sunday dinner at my house. Lauren had taken the children home because Emma had schoolwork to finish. Michael stayed behind to help me move a heavy planter from the porch. When we finished, I wiped my hands on my jeans. Can I ask you something? Michael smiled. That usually means I'm about to get in trouble. I'm serious. His smile disappeared. Okay. Does Lauren want me around the children? He blinked. Of course she does. Then why does every month come with another rule? Michael looked toward the driveway. Mom, I'm asking. She's just trying to establish boundaries. I understand boundaries. I raised a child without moving into my mother's house every time we disagreed. That's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? He exhaled. Lauren sometimes feels like you're very involved. The words hurt more because of how carefully he selected them. I'm involved because you both asked me to be involved. I know. You asked me to pick them up from school. I know. You called when you needed someone to stay with Noah. I know, Mom. And now those things are being treated as if I forced myself into your lives. Michael rubbed his forehead. You're making this bigger than it is. There it was. Again. Just give her some space. I studied my son. How much space does she need before there's no place left for me? Michael's face tightened. Nobody is saying that. Not yet, I thought. But I didn't say it aloud. I followed every rule. That is important. I didn't show up unexpectedly. I didn't complain to the grandchildren. I didn't ask Emma to keep secrets from her mother. I didn't use the financial help I had given them as leverage. I certainly never said after everything I've done for you. Robert and I had both hated that phrase. A gift with a rope attached isn't a gift. Still, something was changing. The children noticed too. One afternoon, Emma called me from Michael's phone. Grandma, hi, sweetheart. Are you coming Wednesday? I hesitated. Wednesday afternoons had once been ours. I don't think so this week. Why, your mom said you have some things to do after school. Silence. Then Emma asked, "Did we do something wrong?" My heart broke a little. "No, because you don't come anymore. I still come. Not like before." I closed my eyes. Children notice absence before adults realize they have created it. You and Noah haven't done anything wrong. Are you mad at us? Never. Then why can't you pick us up? That's something your mom and dad are handling. Emma lowered her voice. Mom says we need more family time. That sounds nice. But aren't you family? There are questions children ask that expose every lie adults tell themselves. I took a moment before answering. Yes, sweetheart. I'm your family. Always. That evening I cried. Not because I needed unlimited access to my grandchildren. I understood that grandparents have boundaries too. I cried because Emma had begun interpreting Lauren's boundaries as rejection, and I was being asked to remain silent while that happened. A few days later, Lauren called. Her tone was controlled. Grace, Emma said you told her you're always her family. I almost laughed from disbelief. I am her grandmother. That's not what I mean. Then explain what you mean. We're trying to teach the children that Michael and I are their primary family unit. I've never suggested otherwise. She shouldn't feel like she has to come to you whenever she's upset. I have never told her she has to, but she does. And there it was. Not something I had done. Something Emma felt. Lauren wasn't angry because I had broken a rule. She was angry because her daughter trusted me. I cannot control whether Emma loves me, I said quietly. That's not what I'm asking. Then what are you asking? Another pause. I'm asking you to give us more room. I looked across my empty kitchen, at Robert's old coffee mug, at the photographs of Michael as a boy, at one picture of Emma sitting on Robert's shoulders years before we knew how little time he had left. All right, I said. Lauren sounded relieved. Thank you. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. I had spent months telling myself Lauren wanted boundaries. But boundaries protect relationships. They tell people where the doors are. What Lauren was building felt different. She wasn't showing me where the door was. She was slowly closing it. I still didn't understand how far she intended to go. That became clear 3 weeks later when Noah's birthday arrived. I had already wrapped his present. I had already cleared my Saturday. I had even bought the ingredients for his favorite blueberry waffles. There was only one problem. No one had told me what time the party started. By Saturday afternoon, I would discover why. Noah's birthday fell on a Saturday that year. I had been preparing for it for weeks. I was going through a phase where he loved books about dinosaurs, space, and anything involving what he called real-life mysteries. I found a boxed collection at a bookstore near my house and bought it nearly a month before his birthday. I wrapped it in blue paper covered with little silver stars. Then I put it on the guest room dresser and waited for someone to tell me about the party. Monday passed, then Tuesday. By Wednesday, I began wondering whether they were planning something small. I resisted the urge to call. Lauren had made it clear she wanted space, and I was trying to give it to her. Thursday evening, I finally texted Michael. What are the plans for Noah's birthday this weekend? He didn't answer until almost midnight. Keeping things pretty simple this year, Mom. I'll call you tomorrow. He didn't. Friday passed without another word. I told myself they might be celebrating as a family on Saturday and inviting me for cake Sunday. So Saturday morning I made blueberry waffles anyway. Habit, I suppose. For years, whenever one of the children had a birthday, they came to my house for breakfast sometime that weekend. I set the table for one person. Then I stared at the extra waffles cooling on the counter and felt ridiculous. At 68 years old, I should have known better than to wait beside the phone, hoping someone would remember me. Around 2 that afternoon, I sat down with a cup of coffee and opened Facebook. The first photograph on my screen stopped me cold. Noah was standing behind an enormous chocolate birthday cake. There were balloons everywhere. Behind him, I recognized Michael in Lauren's backyard. The next photograph showed at least 15 children. Then another. Lauren's parents were there. Her sister was there. Michael's college friend and his wife were there. Several neighbors were there. It was not a small celebration. It was a birthday party, a real one. And I was the grandmother who had not been invited. I scrolled back to the first picture. Lauren's caption read, "Celebrating our sweet boy with the people who make our little family so special." I read it 3 times. Our little family. For a moment, anger rose so quickly that my hands began trembling. I could have written a comment. I could have typed, "Looks wonderful." I wish his grandmother had been invited. Hundreds of people would have seen it. I could have called Michael immediately and demanded an explanation. Instead, I closed the app. I walked into the guest room and looked at Noah's present. Then I sat on the edge of the bed. Robert's photograph stood on the dresser beside it. "You would have called Michael," I whispered. Robert had never been good at letting things sit. I could almost hear him saying, "Grace, there's respecting boundaries, and then there's letting people walk over you." But Robert wasn't there. And I didn't want Noah's birthday turned into a family war. So I did nothing. That was becoming my role. Do nothing, say nothing, understand everything. 2 days later, my home phone rang shortly after 4 in the afternoon. I almost didn't answer because I didn't recognize the number. "Hello?" For a second, there was only breathing. Then a small voice said, "Grandma Emma." "Yeah." Something in her voice made me sit down. "Sweetheart, whose phone are you using?" "The kitchen phone. Their house still had an old cordless line because of the security system. Is everything okay?" "Yes." Another pause. Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Grandma, why don't you want to see us anymore?" My throat tightened. "What Mom said, you need space from us." I gripped the phone. "Emma, listen to me. I have never said that. But she said you were getting too dependent on us." For a moment, I genuinely couldn't speak. Dependent. On my grandchildren. Emma continued before I could answer. She said grown-ups sometimes need boundaries because relationships can get unhealthy. Those were not Emma's words. They were Lauren's. "Did your mother tell you I didn't want to come to Noah's birthday?" Emma went quiet. That silence answered me. Finally, she whispered, "She said you thought it was better not to come." I closed my eyes. I had expected Lauren to restrict my visits. I had not expected her to lie to the children about why I was disappearing. "Emma, I need you to hear me very carefully." "Okay. I love you. I love Noah. Nothing either of you has done has made me want to stay away." "Then why weren't you there?" "Because your mother didn't invite me." The sentence sat on my tongue. But I couldn't give it to an 11-year-old. That is something the adults need to work out. Emma sniffed. "I thought you were mad at us." "No, sweetheart. Promise, I promise." I heard movement on her end. Then Emma whispered quickly, "Mom's coming." The call ended. I remained at my kitchen table holding the receiver. That was the moment something inside me changed. Until then, I had treated Lauren's behavior as insecurity. Maybe stress. Maybe a mother struggling to define her role. But telling children their grandmother had chosen to leave them was different. That wasn't a boundary. It was manipulation. I called Michael. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, Mom, did you tell Emma I don't want to see her?" Silence. "Then what?" "Emma just called me." Another silence. Longer this time. "Mom, she wasn't supposed to call you without asking." The words hit me like a slap. "That is your concern." "No, I just mean, she thinks I abandoned her." Lauren talked to them. I know exactly what Lauren told them. Michael exhaled. "Mom, please don't turn this into something. Your daughter asked me why I don't want to see her anymore." That isn't exactly what Lauren said. She told Emma I was too dependent on them. Michael said nothing. Did she? "Lauren thinks the relationship has become too intense." I stood from the table. "Too intense? Emma comes to you with everything. She talks to me. She sometimes talks to you before she talks to Lauren. And that is my fault?" "No." "Then whose fault is it?" "That's not what I mean." I could hear tension entering his voice. "Lauren feels like the lines are getting blurred." "What lines?" "Family roles." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "And what role am I confusing?" "Michael, their grandmother, Mom." "No. Explain it." He lowered his voice. "You're very involved Because you asked me to be. I know. You asked me to pick them up. You asked me to babysit. You asked me to help when Lauren had clients. I didn't break into your house and appoint myself grandmother. I know that. Then why am I suddenly being treated like I've done something wrong? Michael became quiet. I waited. Finally, he said, Lauren thinks we need more time as an immediate family. Then take it. That's what we're trying to do. I have given you space every time you've asked. I know. Apparently it isn't enough. Mom, nobody is trying to hurt you. I looked toward the guest room where Noah's birthday present still sat unopened. You had a birthday party Saturday. Michael didn't respond. You told me you were keeping things simple. We were. 15 children, Lauren's parents, her sister, your friends, and half the neighborhood. He sighed. Mom, please. Why wasn't I invited? Lauren thought it might be better. And what did you think? That was the question. Not what Lauren thought. Not what boundaries Lauren wanted. What did my son think Michael took so long to answer that I finally understood? He had known. He had allowed it. Mom, I'm just trying to keep peace in my house. I felt something sink inside me. And the easiest way to do that is to hurt me instead. That's not fair. No, Michael, it isn't. Neither of us spoke for several seconds. Then he said quietly, just give us a little more time. How much I don't know. And while I'm giving you that time, what exactly are you telling my grandchildren, Mom? Because I will respect your rules. I will respect your home. But I will not accept being turned into the woman who stopped loving those children. Nobody said you stopped loving them. That is exactly what Emma believes. Michael had no answer. I ended the call shortly afterward. That evening, I placed Noah's birthday gift in my closet. I couldn't bring myself to mail it because I didn't know what story Lauren might attach to it. For the first time, I began to understand that complying wasn't solving anything. Every step backward simply made the next step easier for Lauren to demand. And yet some foolish part of me still believed there had to be a limit. Surely she wouldn't completely cut me off. Surely Michael wouldn't allow that. Then 3 weeks later, my voicemail light blinked. Emma had left a message. Her voice was soft and hurried. Grandma, I miss you. Noah does too. He keeps asking about your blueberry waffles. Could you maybe bring some sometime? I listened to it twice. Then a third time. The next afternoon I made the waffles. I packed them carefully into a box. And I drove to my son's house believing I was delivering something small to 2 children who missed their grandmother. I had no idea Lauren was about to meet me at that front door and finally say aloud what all those smaller rules had been leading toward. Stop visiting my children. The next afternoon, I stood in my kitchen making blueberry waffles for 2 children I had been told needed space from me. Even now I can remember how absurdly normal everything felt. The waffle iron hissed. The radio played softly beside the sink. Sunlight fell across the counter where Robert used to sit on Sunday mornings reading the newspaper. Nothing about that kitchen suggested that within an hour, my relationship with my son's family would change completely. I packed the waffles into a rectangular container, added fresh blueberries, and placed everything inside a cardboard bakery box I had saved. I almost called Lauren. My hand was already on my phone when I stopped. Emma had called me. The children had asked for me. And after being told for months that I needed to respect everyone else's feelings, I decided the feelings of my grandchildren mattered too. Still, I wasn't going there to confront anyone. I intended to hand over the box, hug Emma and Noah if I was allowed to, and leave. The drive took 22 minutes. I knew because I watched the dashboard clock the entire way. When I turned into their subdivision, familiar places suddenly felt foreign. The neighborhood pool where I had taught Emma to float. The corner where Noah once dropped his ice cream and cried as though his future had been destroyed. The oak-lined street leading toward the house I had helped them buy. I parked along the curb instead of pulling into the driveway. Something told me not to make myself too comfortable. I carried the box to the front porch and rang the bell. Lauren opened the door. She didn't smile. Her eyes went immediately to the box. What are you doing here? The question surprised me. Emma left me a message yesterday. Lauren's expression changed. What message? She said she and Noah missed me. Noah wanted blueberry waffles. You shouldn't have come without asking. I'm not staying. I lifted the box slightly. I only wanted to drop these off. Lauren remained directly in the doorway. She didn't reach for the box. Behind her I heard footsteps. Grandma Noah. My heart jumped. He appeared at the end of the hallway wearing a red t-shirt and socks. His face lit up. Grandma? He started toward me. Lauren turned. Noah, go back upstairs. He stopped. But upstairs, please. The excitement disappeared from his face. Then I saw Emma. She stood several steps up the staircase, one hand gripping the railing. Her eyes were already wet. That was when I understood this wasn't going to be about waffles. Lauren, I said quietly, what is happening? She folded her arms. We need to talk. Then talk. She glanced behind herself before lowering her voice. I think you need to stop visiting the children for a while. The words were almost identical to what I remembered from the hook of my own life, the sentence that would replay in my head for months. I stared at her. The children. You know what I mean. They're my grandchildren, and they're my children. There it was. Not family, possession. I felt anger rise, but I forced myself to stay calm. What exactly have I done? This isn't about one thing. Then give me two. Lauren's jaw tightened. You don't respect boundaries. I have followed every boundary you've given me. You came here today without asking. Because Emma called me. She wasn't supposed to. She is 11 years old and thinks her grandmother doesn't want to see her. Lauren's face hardened, and I never said that. She repeated your words to me. She misunderstood. She said I was too dependent on them. Lauren looked away. So you did say it. I said the relationship was becoming unhealthy. The sentence hurt more than I expected. My relationship with my grandchildren is unhealthy. You make them emotionally dependent on you. How? They come to you for everything. Children talk to people they trust. They should come to their parents first. I have never told them otherwise. That doesn't change what's happening. I looked toward Emma. Tears were running silently down her cheeks. Then maybe this conversation shouldn't be happening in front of them. Lauren followed my gaze. Emma upstairs. Emma didn't move. Mom now. But Grandma just got here. My chest tightened. I'm not staying, sweetheart. Emma looked at me. Why I couldn't answer honestly without dragging her into the conflict. Lauren answered for me. Because Grandma understands that we need family time. I turned back to her. Don't do that. Her eyes narrowed. Do what? Don't put words in my mouth. The hallway went silent. Then I heard another sound from somewhere deeper inside the house. A cabinet closing. Footsteps. Michael appeared. He stopped when he saw me. Mom, for 1 second relief moved through me. My son was there. He could end this. Michael, I said. Good. We need to clear something up. His eyes moved from me to Lauren. Lauren said nothing. Michael looked uncomfortable immediately. That told me enough to become afraid of his answer. I asked anyway. Lauren says I need to stop seeing Emma and Noah. Michael rubbed the back of his neck. Mom, that's not exactly... Then tell me exactly. He looked toward the staircase. Kids go upstairs. Neither moved. Lauren finally guided Noah toward the stairs. Emma remained where she was. I kept my eyes on Michael. Do you want me to stop visiting my grandchildren? Mom, can we not make this so dramatic, the same language? I felt something inside me harden. I'm standing on your porch being told I'm no longer welcome to visit my grandchildren. I think I've earned a direct answer. Michael lowered his voice. Lauren and I have been talking. I assumed so. We think maybe everybody needs some space. Everybody, you know what I mean. No, Michael, I don't anymore. He looked exhausted. And for one foolish moment I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered Emma crying on the stairs. Do you agree with her? Michael stared at the floor. That silence was worse than anything Lauren had said. Look at me, I told him. He did. Do you want me to stop seeing them? His lips parted. Nothing came out. Lauren shifted impatiently beside him. Finally, Michael whispered, maybe for a little while. I don't know what expression crossed my face, but I saw regret immediately appear in his. Mom, I raised my hand. No, I don't mean permanently. You answered the question. I'm trying to keep things peaceful. I almost laughed. Peaceful. There is a particular kind of cowardice that dresses itself up as keeping the peace. Someone is always paying for that peace. That afternoon it was me. I looked past him. Emma was still on the stairs. Noah had come back down 2 steps. "Grandma," he whispered. I smiled at him. "It took everything I had. I brought your waffles." His eyes dropped to the box. I placed it beside the front door. "For both of you." Emma wiped her cheeks. "Are you mad at us?" That nearly broke me. "Never." "Then why are you leaving?" I swallowed. "Because sometimes grown-ups have things they need to figure out." "Will you come back?" I looked at Michael. Then Lauren. Neither said anything. I turned back to Emma. "I love you." It wasn't an answer. She knew it. So did I. But it was the only promise I could safely give. I walked down the porch steps. Michael followed me halfway. "Mom." I kept walking. "Mom, wait." I turned. He stood on the walkway between the house and my car. "This isn't supposed to hurt you." I stared at him. "Then who exactly did you think it would hurt?" He looked down. I had my answer. I got into my car. I didn't cry immediately. I drove out of their subdivision, past the pool, past the elementary school, past all those places where I had spent years being useful. At a red light, my hands began shaking. I pulled into a grocery store parking lot and sat there. That was when the tears came. Not because Lauren had rejected me. I had known for months that she wanted distance. I cried because my son had stood behind her and allowed it. Michael had chosen silence because silence was easier than courage. Eventually, I drove home. The house was dark when I entered. I put my purse on the kitchen counter and stood there listening to the silence. Then I looked toward the small room Robert and I had once used as an office. I remembered something. A white envelope. A payment notice. A bill that had arrived every year for so long that Michael barely thought about it anymore. I walked into the office, opened the second drawer of my desk. And there it was. I lifted the envelope and stared at Michael's address printed across the page. For years I had told myself paying it was simply another way of protecting Emma and Noah. But that evening, Lauren's words came back to me. "We need boundaries." For the first time, I wondered why her boundaries applied only to my presence. If I was supposed to step away from their family, perhaps I needed to understand exactly what stepping away meant. Not as punishment, not as revenge, as a boundary of my own. I sat down at the desk, opened the envelope, and looked at the amount due. Then I reached for my phone. The phone stayed in my hand for almost a full minute before I made the call. I wanted to be certain I wasn't acting out of anger. That mattered to me. Robert used to say that decisions made while your heart was racing usually cost twice as much to fix afterward. He had been talking about buying cars when he first said it, but over 42 years of marriage, the advice had proven useful for almost everything. So I put the phone down. I went into the kitchen. I made tea. Then I returned to the office and read the notice again. The expense was connected to the annual homeowner's insurance and an escrow shortage on Michael and Lauren's house. Years earlier, when rising insurance costs had pushed their housing expenses beyond what they comfortably managed, I had agreed to cover the difference. It had started as temporary help. That was the important part. My name wasn't on Michael's mortgage. I wasn't a co-borrower. I wasn't responsible for his insurance. I didn't own a percentage of his house because I had helped with the closing costs. The money I paid each year was voluntary. Over time, however, something voluntary had quietly become expected. I opened my filing cabinet. Working in payroll for more than 3 decades had left me with habits my friends occasionally teased me about. I kept statements. I labeled folders. I recorded important payments. I found the original documents from the year the arrangement began. There was even a handwritten note from Michael. "Mom, thank you for helping us get through this year. I promise this is temporary. Once things settle down, I'll take it back over. Love, Michael." I stared at the word temporary. That note was 4 years old. I sat back in my chair. For 4 years, I had never once asked Michael to repay me. I had never used the money to demand Christmas invitations. Never mentioned it when Lauren criticized me. Never told Emma or Noah. As far as the children knew, their parents paid for their home. That was exactly how I wanted it. But now another question had become impossible to ignore. If Michael and Lauren wanted me removed from their daily family life, why was I still quietly responsible for making that family life easier? I picked up the phone again. This time I called my financial advisor, David Reynolds. David had helped Robert and me organize our retirement accounts years earlier. After Robert died, he became one of the few people I trusted to look at my finances without trying to tell me what an older widow should do with her money. His assistant answered. Fortunately, David was still in the office. "Grace," he said when he came on the line. "Everything okay? I need you to answer a question for me." "That sounds serious." "It might be." I explained the arrangement. David already knew some of it because the payments appeared in the annual spending reviews we did together. "I remember," he said. "The housing support for Michael." "Yes. What about it? I want to stop." David paused. "Okay." I almost laughed. "That's it. Were you expecting an argument?" "I suppose I was expecting you to ask why." "Do you want me to know?" "Then I won't." That simple respect nearly made me cry. Instead, I asked the questions that mattered. Am I legally obligated to continue? No. Is my name attached to their mortgage? Num. The insurance? Num. Any contract requiring these payments? Not that I've ever seen. You described them as gifts. They were. Then you can stop giving them. I looked again at Michael's handwritten note. What happens if I don't pay this next cycle? The expense goes back where it originally belonged to the homeowners. Michael and Lauren will have to absorb it in their household budget. Depending on how their escrow is structured, they may see an adjustment in their required housing payment or need to address the shortage directly. So I'm not creating a debt for them. No. You're simply no longer paying part of an expense they already own. That distinction mattered. I did not want revenge. I did not want to damage my son's credit. I did not want Emma and Noah waking up one morning with a foreclosure notice taped to their door. I wanted one thing: to stop carrying a responsibility that was never mine. David must have sensed my hesitation. "Grace, are you comfortable telling me what changed?" I stared toward the dark window. "My daughter-in-law told me today that I should stop visiting my grandchildren." David was silent, and Michael agreed. Another silence. Then he said carefully, "I'm sorry. I don't want this to look like I'm buying access to the children." "Then don't make access a condition." "I won't. If you stop the payment, stop because you no longer want to provide the financial support. Don't say, 'Let me see the children and I'll start paying again.' Keep the two issues separate." That was exactly what I needed to hear. "I understand. Do you want me to help remove it from your automatic payment schedule?" "Yes." He walked me through the process. The cancellation itself took less than 5 minutes. It felt strange that something I had done for years could disappear with a few clicks. I stared at the confirmation screen. Automatic payment canceled. There was no dramatic music, no feeling of triumph. Mostly I felt tired. David asked, "Are you sure?" I thought about Emma crying on the staircase. Noah asking whether I would come back. Lauren saying, "They're my children." Michael staring at the floor. "Yes." I clicked confirm. That was it. I didn't call Michael. I didn't send Lauren a screenshot. I didn't write some clever message about boundaries. I didn't post anything on Facebook. I didn't even tell my closest friends. I simply filed the cancellation confirmation behind the original documents and closed the drawer. For the first time in 4 years, that bill belonged entirely to the people whose names were actually attached to the house. The following morning I woke before 6. For several seconds I wondered whether I had done something cruel. That is one of the dangers of being the person who always helps. The first time you say no, you can feel guilty, even when nobody had the right to your yes. I went downstairs and made coffee. Robert's mug was still in the cabinet. I took it down. I hadn't used it since he died. I poured my coffee into it and sat beside the kitchen window. "What would you have done?" I whispered. Of course he didn't answer. But I remembered something from when Michael was 23. He had overspent badly after getting his first decent job. Credit cards and new car dinners he couldn't afford. Robert refused to rescue him. I had been furious. "He's our son," I told him. "And he'll still be our son after he pays his own bill," Robert replied. Michael struggled for months, then he fixed it. At the time, I thought Robert had been hard. Now I wondered whether I had spent too many years softening every difficult landing for our son. I opened my checkbook register and calculated what I had paid toward Michael and Lauren's housing costs over the years. The total surprised even me. Not because it threatened my retirement, it didn't, but because I suddenly realized how invisible the support had become. Nobody had thanked me the previous year. Nobody had even mentioned it. Michael had stopped seeing it as help. Lauren barely knew it existed, and I had continued paying because stopping somehow felt unkind. That morning I finally understood something. Generosity is beautiful when it is freely given. But when everyone forgets it is a gift, generosity can quietly turn into obligation. I refused to let that happen anymore. The money was not going to become a weapon. I would never say, "Give me my grandchildren, or I'll make you suffer." Emma and Noah were not bargaining chips. Neither was my bank account. Lauren wanted a boundary. She had one. And now, so did I. For the next several days, my phone remained silent. No Michael, no Lauren, no Emma, no Noah. Each time a car slowed outside my house, I looked through the window. Each time my phone rang, my heart jumped. But nobody from my family called. A week passed, then another. The payment date came and went. For the first time in years, no money left my account for Michael's house. Nothing happened immediately. No angry phone call, no confrontation, just silence. And strangely, that silence hurt almost as much as the words at the front door. I began wondering whether Michael had even noticed I was gone. But somewhere across Richmond, a financial clock had started ticking. Sooner or later, a notice would arrive. Sooner or later, somebody would look at the numbers. And sooner or later, Michael would realize that when he asked his mother to step back, she had finally listened. Completely. The hardest part of stepping back was discovering how much empty space my family had occupied. Wednesday afternoons were the worst. For years, Wednesday had meant watching the clock until it was time to leave for Emma's school. It meant hearing about whatever friendship crisis had happened at lunch, then collecting Noah and listening to him explain something about dinosaurs with complete confidence and questionable scientific accuracy. Now Wednesday was simply Wednesday. At 3:15, I would sometimes find myself standing at the kitchen window. My body remembered the routine even when there was nowhere for me to go. During the second week of silence, I got into my car without thinking. I needed groceries, I told myself. But instead of driving toward the supermarket, I found myself on the road, leading toward Emma's school. I realized what I was doing when I saw the yellow school zone sign. My foot came off the accelerator. For one terrible second, I imagined parking across the street. I could wait. I could see them from a distance. Maybe Emma would see my car. Then I heard Lauren's voice in my head. "You need to stop visiting the children." I turned at the next intersection. I cried all the way home. Not because I believed Lauren was right, because I refused to give her a reason to say I had ignored the boundary. If this was going to hurt, I wanted at least to know I had behaved with dignity. That evening I called my friend Patricia. We had worked together at the hospital for nearly 20 years before she retired. "Are you busy Thursday?" she asked. "No. Book club." "I haven't been to book club in months." "Exactly. I don't even know what you're reading." "Neither does Helen, and she attends every meeting." I laughed for the first time in days. Thursday evening I went. There were 8 women sitting in Patricia's living room arguing about a novel only 5 of us had finished. Nobody asked me to solve a problem. Nobody needed me to drive anywhere. Nobody wanted money. They simply seemed happy I was there. I had forgotten what that felt like. Afterward, Patricia walked me to my car. "You disappeared on us, Grace." "I've been busy. With the grandchildren." It wasn't a question. "Yes." She touched my arm. "You're allowed to have a life that isn't waiting for your family to need you." I thought about that sentence all the way home. The following Monday, I returned to the public library where I used to volunteer. The children's librarian Denise looked surprised when she saw me. Grace Wilson in the flesh. She hugged me. We could use you Tuesday mornings if you're serious. I'm serious. So Tuesday mornings became library mornings. Thursday became book club twice a month. I started having lunch with Patricia again. I cleaned out the shed Robert had filled with tools I hadn't touched since he died. I even returned to the garden. Robert had loved roses. I had let several bushes become wild because trimming them felt like interfering with something that still belonged to him. One Saturday, I finally put on his old gardening gloves. They were too large. I pruned every rose bush. When I finished, I sat on the back steps looking at the branches scattered around me and realized something. I wasn't building a life without Emma and Noah. I was rebuilding a life that had room for me too. There was a difference. I still missed them constantly. Sometimes I reached for my phone when something reminded me of Emma. Once I saw a dinosaur encyclopedia at the library and immediately thought of Noah. I bought neither book. I had nowhere safe to send them. 3 weeks after the automatic payment was canceled, Michael finally texted. It came at 9:17 on a Tuesday night. "Mom, did you change anything recently?" I stared at the screen. No hello. No how are you. No the kids miss you. Just a question. I knew immediately what he meant. But automatic payment was canceled. Michael finally texted. It came at 9:17 on a Tuesday night. "Mom, did you change anything recently?" I stared at the screen. No hello. No how are you. No the kids miss you. Just a question. I knew immediately what he meant. But I decided not to help him avoid saying it. I typed, "What do you mean?" The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, financially. I sat at my kitchen table looking at that one word. Financially. I could have written, "Yes, I stopped paying your bill." Instead, I asked, "Is there something specific you want to ask me?" No response. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I went upstairs. The following morning, there was still nothing. 2 days later, another message came. "Did you talk to David recently?" That irritated me. David was my financial advisor. What happened between David and me was none of Michael's business. I answered yes. I regularly review my finances with him. Again, silence. Then, okay. That was all. Okay. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. For nearly a month, my son had not asked whether I was sleeping. He had not asked whether I missed his children. He had not apologized for standing behind his wife while she removed me from their lives. But the moment something financial felt different, he noticed. I didn't answer. That evening, Patricia and I went to dinner. I told her part of what had happened. Not the financial details, just the separation from the children. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "Are you going to chase them?" "No." "Good. You don't think I should fight for the grandchildren. I think you should love them. That's different from chasing adults who know exactly where you live." Her words were harsh, but they were true. Michael knew my address. He knew my number. He knew I would answer if Emma or Noah needed me. I was not missing. I had been removed. There is a difference between abandoning someone and respecting the distance they demanded. A few days later, Michael called. My phone rang once, then stopped. I stared at his name in the missed call notification. I waited. No voicemail. No text. I almost called him back. My thumb hovered over his name. Then I stopped. If he wanted to talk to me, he could call again. He didn't. The next week, I received an envelope in the mail. For one breathless second, I thought it might be something from Emma. It wasn't. It was a bank statement. I sat at my desk and reviewed my accounts. The money I would normally have spent toward Michael's housing expense was still there. I expected to feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt sad. Money looked so small on paper compared with everything it had come to represent. I closed the statement and opened the drawer containing the old documents. Michael's handwritten note was still there. "This is temporary. I'll take it back over." I read those lines again. Then I put the note away. I was beginning to understand that the bill wasn't really the problem. The problem was what had happened around it. I had made things easier for Michael for so long that he no longer recognized ease as help. Perhaps I had contributed to that. Every time he struggled, I stepped forward. Every time his family needed something, I found a way. Maybe I had confused rescuing someone with loving them. If so, then I had something to learn too. Another week passed. No contact. Then late one Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed. Michael, Mom, I need to ask you something. I read the message. Another appeared before I answered. Did you stop the house payment? There it was. The direct question he had been circling for weeks. I could almost picture him standing somewhere in that brick house holding a notice. I typed carefully. Yes. His reply came immediately. Why didn't you tell me? I stared at those words. For several minutes I didn't answer. Then I wrote, You and Lauren asked me to step back from your family. I am respecting that request. The typing bubbles appeared almost instantly, then disappeared, returned, disappeared again. Nothing came. I put the phone face down. 10 minutes later it rang. Michael. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello? For a moment neither of us spoke. Then my son said, Mom, we have a problem. I looked out at Robert's freshly trimmed roses through the kitchen window. No, Michael, I said quietly. You have a bill. The line went silent, and for the first time I realized he might not be the only person in that house who had just discovered it existed. For several seconds after I said, You have a bill? Michael said nothing. Then I heard him exhale. Mom, this isn't funny. I wasn't joking. You know what I mean. No, Michael. Lately I've discovered that I often don't know what you mean unless you actually say it. His voice dropped. Lauren is sitting right here. That explained the careful tone. Then perhaps this is a conversation the two of you should have together. We already are. I heard something in the background. Lauren's voice. What did she say? Michael covered the phone, but not well enough. Then he came back. Mom, we got a notice from the mortgage servicer. I waited. The escrow analysis came through. Between the insurance increase and the shortage, our payment is going up. A lot. Yes. Another pause. You knew this would happen. I knew the expense would return to the people responsible for it. Lauren said something again, this time louder. Ask her why she canceled it without telling us. Michael repeated the question, almost word for word. Why did you cancel it without telling us? I leaned against my kitchen counter. Michael, when did you last ask me whether I intended to continue paying it? What? When did we last discuss the arrangement? I don't know. Exactly. Mom, you've been handling it for years. Handling it. There was that language again. I was helping you for years. Fine. Helping. Whatever you want to call it. No, it matters what we call it. He went quiet. A responsibility is something I owe, I continued. Help is something I choose to give. Can we not turn this into a lecture? I'm not lecturing you. I'm explaining the difference you seem to have forgotten. Lauren's voice came through again. This is unbelievable. I heard footsteps. Then suddenly her voice was much clearer. Grace. Michael had apparently put me on speaker. Hello, Lauren. Did you cancel that payment because of what happened with the kids? There was accusation in every word. I answered carefully. I reviewed my finances after you asked me to step back. That's not what I asked. You asked me to stop visiting my grandchildren. I asked for boundaries. Yes. So you're punishing us financially for setting boundaries? No. That's exactly what this looks like. I had anticipated that accusation from the moment I canceled the payment. So I knew my answer. If I had said, let me see Emma and Noah or I stop paying, that would be punishment. I didn't. You didn't even warn us, because I am not negotiating access to my grandchildren. Lauren gave a sharp laugh. That's convenient. No, Lauren, it's very inconvenient, especially for me. Michael interrupted. Everybody needs to calm down. I closed my eyes. There was my son again trying to manage the temperature instead of the problem. I am calm. Lauren wasn't. Do you understand what this does to our monthly payment? Yes. How? Because I've understood that expense for years. Silence. Then Lauren asked something I had suspected she didn't know. How long have you been paying it? I looked toward the office. 4 years. The silence that followed was different. Not anger. Shock. 4 years. Yes. I heard movement. Then Lauren spoke to Michael instead of me. You told me your mother helped us that first year. Michael didn't answer. Michael, Lauren, we can talk about this later. No. How long has your mother been paying this? I thought you knew she was helping. You said she helped when the insurance jumped. She did. 4 years ago, I almost felt sorry for Lauren. Almost. Not because she was suddenly facing a bill. Because I could hear the moment she realized her understanding of her own household finances had been incomplete. Michael tried to regain control. Mom, can you just restart it while we figure this out? There it was. Not an apology, not a conversation. A request for the payment to resume. No. The word came easily. Michael sounded stunned. What I said, no. We're not asking you to do it forever. That sounds familiar. What does that mean? The first time you asked me for help, you said it was temporary. It was supposed to be. And 4 years passed. Our situation changed. So has mine. Lauren jumped back in. Your situation, you're retired with a paid-off house. I felt my face grow warm. My financial situation is none of your business. I'm saying you can afford it. I took a breath. That sentence told me more than Lauren probably realized. Not thank you for paying. Not we didn't know. Not we're sorry. Michael allowed this to continue. You can afford it, I said quietly. My ability to pay a bill does not create an obligation to pay it. Lauren didn't respond. Michael did. Mom, nobody is saying you're obligated. Then why are you both angry that I stopped? Another silence. I let the question sit there. Finally, Michael said, You should have warned us. I looked out the kitchen window. Robert's roses moved gently in the evening breeze. You warned me. What, at your front door? Mom, you and Lauren told me very clearly that I was too involved in your family. That was about the kids. No. You don't get to divide me into convenient pieces. Neither spoke. You cannot tell me my presence is unhealthy while treating my financial support as necessary. Lauren said, So this is revenge. No, it feels like revenge. Consequences often feel like revenge when you've become accustomed to someone protecting you from them. Michael muttered my name in warning. I ignored it. I did not create this bill. I did not increase your insurance. I did not take money out of your account. I stopped taking money out of mine. That ended the argument for several seconds. Then I heard a small sound in the background. A child's voice. Dad, Emma. My heart clenched immediately. Michael lowered his voice. Go upstairs, sweetheart. Why are you talking to Grandma? Nobody answered. Can I talk to her? Lauren said. Not now. I shut my eyes. Emma's voice became more distant. But I haven't talked to her in forever. Michael said something I couldn't hear. Then a door closed. Every ounce of satisfaction I might have felt disappeared. This was why I had never wanted money mixed with access to the children. Michael, I said. Yes, do not tell Emma or Noah anything about this bill. What this is an adult financial issue. They are not responsible for it. Of course not. And do not tell them Grandma stopped helping because she was angry. Lauren scoffed. Well, isn't that what happened? No. Then what should we tell them if they ask why things have to change? That question bothered me. Why would things have to change? Neither answered. I straightened. Michael, we'll handle it. There was something in his voice now. Fear, not irritation. Fear. Suddenly the size of the problem shifted in my mind. Michael had always earned decent money. Lauren had her business. The bill was significant, but it should not have created panic this quickly, unless there was something else. How tight are things? I asked. We're fine. Too fast. Michael. We're fine, Mom. I had known my son for 42 years. He was lying. Lauren interrupted. This conversation is going nowhere. For once I agree with you. She went silent. I continued, I will not restart the payment. I will not trade money for visits with my grandchildren, and I will not discuss your household finances in front of the children. Michael sighed. Can we talk tomorrow if you want to talk? Yes. Okay. I almost ended the call. Then Lauren said, Grace, yes, you've made your point. I thought about that. No, Lauren. I don't think you understand my point yet. What point? You asked me to step back. I paused. So I did. I ended the call. My hands were trembling afterward, but I did not regret what I had said. For the first time, Lauren knew the truth. For 4 years, part of the life she believed she and Michael had independently built had been quietly supported by me. But I had learned something too. The panic in Michael's voice didn't match one increased housing expense. There was more, much more. And the next morning at 7:12, my son sent me a message. Can I come over tonight alone? I stared at the final word. Alone. Whatever Michael had been hiding, he wasn't ready to say it in front of his wife. Michael arrived at my house at 7:30 the next evening. I knew something was wrong before he even stepped out of his car. My son had always been careful about his appearance. Years in sales had taught him that people made decisions about you before you finished introducing yourself. Even on casual days, Michael usually looked as though he might unexpectedly meet an important client. That evening, his shirt was wrinkled. His tie was stuffed into his coat pocket. There were dark circles beneath his eyes. I opened the door before he knocked. Come in. Thanks, Mom. He walked past me carrying a thick folder. That folder frightened me more than his face. I made coffee and brought 2 cups into the kitchen. Michael sat at the same table where years earlier I had written the check that helped him buy his house. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, I nodded toward the folder. What is that? He placed both hands on it. The truth, I guess. That sounds expensive. A tired smile appeared briefly. It is. He opened the folder. Credit card statements, bank statements, a spreadsheet, a notice from his employer. I looked at him. How bad? Michael rubbed his face. My commissions have been down for almost a year. How far down? Some months 30%, a couple months closer to 40. I stared at him. And you didn't tell me. I thought it would turn around. What happened? The company changed territories. Then 2 hospital systems delayed equipment purchases. I missed quota 3 quarters in a row. Michael had always earned a solid base salary, but commissions had funded much of their lifestyle. The vacations, the newer cars, the home improvements, the children's activities. What about Lauren? Her business isn't doing as well as she says. That surprised me. She told everyone she was expanding. She was trying to. Michael looked embarrassed. She lost 2 of her biggest clients last year. One moved out of state. The other brought design work in-house. How much income did that cost? Enough? I didn't like that answer. Michael. Almost half her business revenue. I sat back. For a moment, all I could hear was the refrigerator humming. How have you been covering everything? His eyes dropped to the folder. That was when I noticed the credit card statements. How much, Mom? How much credit card debt? He hesitated. Just over 43,000. My stomach dropped. $43,000 across several cards. That does not make it better. I know. I opened one statement. Restaurants, clothing, a weekend hotel, furniture, subscription services. Not all of it was reckless. There were medical expenses and household repairs too. But there was enough unnecessary spending to tell me they had been trying to preserve appearances. You knew your income had dropped, I said. Why didn't you cut expenses? We did. No, Michael. You adjusted expenses. That's different. He looked irritated. You don't know everything. Then tell me. He stood and walked toward the window. Lauren was terrified of what losing the life we'd built. I looked around my modest kitchen. Robert and I had lived through layoffs, medical bills, inflation, and years when vacations meant driving 3 hours and staying with relatives. A life wasn't a granite countertop. But I kept that thought to myself. So instead of changing the life, you borrowed money to make it look unchanged. Michael turned. When you say it like that, it sounds stupid. It sounds accurate. He sat down again. I softened my voice. Does Lauren know about all 43,000? His silence answered me. Oh, Michael, she knows we have balances. How much does she think? Maybe 15. I stared at my son. So Lauren didn't know I was still paying part of the housing expense, and she doesn't know how much debt you have. She has her own cards. That isn't an answer. I was trying to protect her. No, you were trying to avoid a difficult conversation. His face tightened. That's easy for you to say. No, it isn't. I leaned forward. I watched your father die while pretending I wasn't terrified because I didn't want you worrying about me. I know exactly what it feels like to want to protect someone. But hiding numbers doesn't change numbers. Michael looked away. I tapped the folder. Why did my canceled payment create such immediate panic? He swallowed. We were already barely covering everything. How barely? Some months were moving balances between cards. I used part of a bonus to catch up last spring. We took money out of savings. How much savings is left? About 6,000. I closed my eyes. Their emergency fund had once been more than 30,000. So when that housing adjustment arrived, it pushed the monthly budget over the edge. There it was. The truth. The bill I stopped paying had not created their crisis. It had exposed it. Michael stared into his coffee. I thought maybe you'd restart it. No. He nodded slowly. I figured. Something in his expression made me sad. You're angry. At you? Yes, I was. Now I'm disappointed. He flinched. I think I'd rather you be angry. I imagine so. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then Michael said something unexpected. Lauren really does feel threatened by you. I frowned. This is about the children again. Partly. He rubbed his hands together. She says when something goes wrong, everybody turns to you. Everybody. The kids. Me. You're 42, Michael. I don't summon you. I know. When have I demanded you come to me? You haven't. Then what is she angry about? She says I always know you'll rescue me. The word rescue landed hard, because it was true. Michael continued. She said we would never feel like an independent family while my mother was always standing behind us. I almost laughed. Is that why she wanted me gone? She wanted us to prove we could handle things ourselves. I looked at the folder between us. Apparently proof had arrived. Did Lauren know you were coming here tonight? No. Why not? She thinks I'm trying to convince you to restart the payment. Are you? Michael hesitated. No. Good. Not anymore. I studied him. What changed our call yesterday? What about it? When you said you hadn't taken money from us. You'd just stopped taking money from yourself. He looked embarrassed. I hated hearing it. Truth often has bad manners. That made him smile faintly. Then I asked the question that had been bothering me. If Lauren wanted independence so badly, why was she furious when I stopped paying? Michael didn't answer immediately. Finally, he said, because she didn't understand how much help there actually was. That isn't independence. I know, and neither is hiding debt from your wife. I know that too. I reached across the table and closed the folder. You wanted independence from my presence, Michael. He looked at me. Not from my money. His face changed. The sentence hurt him. I didn't enjoy that, but I wasn't going to soften it. I never wanted you dependent on me, I continued. I wanted to help you through a difficult period. Somewhere along the way, you stopped climbing out because I kept making the hole comfortable. Michael's eyes filled. I screwed this up. Yes. He gave a broken laugh. Thanks, Mom. You didn't come here for me to lie. No. Then what are you going to do? I don't know. You start by telling Lauren the truth. His expression immediately tightened. All of it. All of it. She'll lose her mind. Maybe. She might blame me. She should blame you for the things you hid. He looked surprised. You're not blaming her. I blame Lauren for what she did to me and the children. I blame you for what you did. Those are separate things. Michael stared at the table. Then he whispered, I should have stopped her that day. Yes. When she told you not to come back. Yes. I thought if I backed her up, things would calm down. I felt the old wound open again. You bought peace with someone else's pain. He nodded. I'm sorry. It wasn't enough yet. But it was the first apology he had given me. Before he left, Michael gathered his statements. At the door, he turned. Mom, Yes. There's something else. My stomach tightened. What? He hesitated. Lauren has been talking about selling the house. I wasn't surprised. With these numbers, you may have to. That isn't the part I'm worried about. What part? Michael looked toward his car. She said, if we have to move, the kids are going to ask why. I waited, and his face was pale. And I'm starting to think I know who she's planning to blame. Lauren called me 2 days after Michael came to my house. Not Michael. Lauren. I was at the library returning books to a cart when my phone vibrated inside my purse. I almost ignored it, but when I saw her name, I stepped into the hallway. Hello, we need to talk. No greeting. No apology. All right. In person. That surprised me. Where your house? Tonight I hesitated. 7. She arrived at exactly 7. Lauren looked different from the woman who had stood in her doorway blocking me from my grandchildren. Her hair was pulled into a loose ponytail. She wore jeans and a plain gray sweater instead of the polished clothes I usually saw her in. She looked tired. I led her inside. Coffee. No, thank you. We sat in my living room. Lauren glanced at the photographs on the mantel. There was one of Michael and her on their wedding day, another of Emma as a baby, one of Noah sitting on Robert's lap. I wondered whether Lauren noticed that she had never been erased from my family photographs, even when she had tried to erase me from hers. I know Michael came here, she said. Yes. He told me everything. I waited. The credit cards, his commissions, what you've been paying. How did that conversation go? Badly, I imagine. Her eyes hardened. You don't have to enjoy this. I don't. It certainly seems like you do. Then you're seeing what you expect to see. Lauren folded her arms. You stopped that payment right after I told you we needed space. Yes. And somehow that's not retaliation. We've already discussed this. No. You gave me a speech about boundaries. And you gave me several before that. Her jaw tightened. I could feel the conversation moving toward another argument. I didn't want one. So I asked the question I actually cared about. Why did you really want me gone, Lauren? She blinked. I told you. You gave me phrases. Healthy boundaries. Family roles. Emotional dependence. They matter. Then explain them without using those phrases. Lauren looked away. I waited. Finally, she said, do you know what happens when Emma has a bad day? She talks to someone. She asks for you. There it was. And when Noah gets hurt, he's 8. He asks for Grandma. Her voice sharpened. And when Michael has a problem, who does he call? I said nothing. You. She leaned forward. When the kids need a ride, you fix it. When Michael is worried about money, you fix it. When somebody needs help, Grace appears. I thought I was helping. That's exactly the problem. I stared at her. You resent me because I help. I resent feeling unnecessary in my own family. The anger disappeared from her voice on the last word. For the first time, I heard what was underneath it. Fear. Lauren looked down at her hands. Do you know what Emma said to me last year? No. She said she wanted to be like you when she grew up. I almost smiled, but Lauren's expression stopped me. She didn't say she wanted to be like me. Lauren, I'm her mother. Yes. But somehow you're the patient one. You're the one who always has time. You're the one who makes waffles and reads books and never has to tell them to clean their rooms or finish homework. I understood more than she expected. That's because I'm the grandmother. She looked at me. I get the easier role. I know that. I had the harder role with Michael. Lauren's eyes filled slightly. You make it look effortless. No. You see me after the effort. She didn't respond. I continued. When Michael was 11, he told my sister he wished she were his mother because she let him eat ice cream for breakfast during sleepovers. Despite herself, Lauren almost smiled. I was furious. What did you do? I complained to Robert for 3 days. Then I got over it. Lauren looked toward the mantel. I didn't get over it. No. I wanted them to need me first. There was the truth. Not boundaries, not parenting philosophy. Need. Children loving someone else does not reduce what they feel for you. I know that logically. But you punished them anyway. Her face tightened. I wasn't punishing them. You told Emma I wanted distance from her. I didn't know what else to say. The truth. That I didn't want you around. Yes. Lauren looked shocked. That would have made me look terrible. I let the silence answer for me. She understood. So instead I said, "You let me look terrible." Lauren's eyes dropped. I shouldn't have done that. No, I was angry. So was I. I still didn't tell Emma her mother was jealous of her grandmother. That landed. Lauren wiped beneath one eye. For a moment I thought we had reached the center of the problem. Then she said something that changed the entire conversation. "We may have to sell the house, I know." She looked surprised. "Michael told me." Lauren stood and walked toward the window. "We can't carry everything anymore. Then selling may be the responsible choice. The kids will lose their school. That would be difficult. They'll lose their friends." "Yes." She turned. "And you can just sit there." I stared at her. "What would you like me to do? You know what you could do." There it was. "Restart the payment." I shook my head. "No." Her expression hardened again. "Then don't pretend you're concerned about what happens to them." I felt my anger rise. "Do not use those children to make me responsible for your mortgage. I'm not. You just did." Lauren paced once across the room. "You have the money. And you have a house you may no longer be able to afford. You helped put us there. I helped you buy it. I didn't promise to finance it forever." Lauren said nothing. Then I remembered Michael's final words 2 nights earlier. "If we have to move, the kids are going to ask why." I studied her. "What are you planning to tell Emma and Noah if you sell?" Lauren froze. That was enough. "What are you planning to tell them? We haven't decided anything." That wasn't my question. She looked toward the door. "Lauren." Finally she said, "They'll need an explanation." "Yes." "And the financial situation changed when you stopped helping." I felt cold. "No. The financial situation changed long before I stopped helping. They won't understand commissions and credit card debt." "Then explain it in language children can understand." She said nothing. "Were you going to tell them Grandma stopped paying?" "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." Lauren turned away. I stood. "Look at me." Slowly she did. "You already told Emma I chose to stop seeing her because you didn't want to admit you were keeping me away." Lauren's face went pale. "Now you're considering telling those children they may lose their home because Grandma stopped helping because you don't want to admit their parents were living beyond their means. That's not fair. It is exactly what you're doing. We are under enormous pressure. So am I. You don't have 2 children depending on you." "No. I have 2 grandchildren being used to carry adult problems they didn't create." Lauren stared at me. I lowered my voice. "I will not let you make me the villain so you can avoid telling the truth." Tears appeared in her eyes. "I was trying to hold my family together. So was I." "You don't understand." "I understand more than you think." I stepped closer. "I also understand something I should have understood years ago. I helped too much." Lauren looked confused. "I made it easy for Michael to avoid growing up financially. Every time things became difficult, I softened the landing. That was my mistake." She didn't expect me to admit that. "But my mistake does not excuse yours." Her shoulders dropped. For the first time that evening, neither of us seemed interested in winning. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "Start with the truth. What if we lose the house? Then you lose a house." Her eyes widened. "You do not have to lose your family with it." Lauren looked toward the photograph of Emma and Noah. After a long silence, she picked up her purse. At the door, she turned. "I really did think you were taking my place. I never wanted it. I know that now. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was closer to honesty than anything she had given me." After she left, I stood alone in the hallway. The situation was finally clear. This had never really been about boundaries. Lauren had wanted to feel necessary. Michael had wanted to avoid conflict. I had wanted to protect everyone. And between the 3 of us, we had created a family where love, money, help, and obligation had become tangled together. It was time to separate them. I would not save Michael and Lauren from every consequence. But Emma and Noah were different. They were children. and I knew exactly where my next boundary needed to be. I would help my grandchildren. I would not rescue their parents. I spent the next morning doing something I had avoided for years. I drew a line on paper, not metaphorically, literally. I sat at my kitchen table with a yellow legal pad, wrote Emma and Noah on the left side and Michael and Lauren on the right, then drew a line straight down the middle. It looked almost childish, but I needed to see the difference. On the children's side, I wrote education, medical needs, books, school activities, emergencies. Then I looked at the other side, mortgage, credit cards, cars, lifestyle. I put my pen down. For years I had told myself helping Michael financially was the same as protecting my grandchildren. Sometimes it was, but not always. Paying for Noah's medical care when insurance left a large balance was helping a child. Paying for Emma's school program was helping a child. Quietly absorbing housing costs while two adults continued spending beyond their income was something else. That was rescue. And I was finished rescuing. Michael called that afternoon. "Can we talk?" "Yes." Lauren told me she came over. She did. "How did it go?" "You should ask your wife." I did. And she cried for half the night. That hurt to hear. Despite everything Lauren had done, I didn't enjoy her pain. "I'm sorry she's hurting." Michael sounded surprised. "You are?" "Of course I am. I thought you'd be angry." "I am angry. Those things can exist together." He was quiet. Then he said, "We told the kids we might have to make some changes." "What kind of changes?" "We didn't mention the house yet. Just that we need to spend less for a while." "How did they take it?" Noah asked if that meant no pizza on Fridays. I smiled despite myself. "And Emma?" "She knew something was wrong already." "Of course she did. Emma noticed everything." "Michael, I want to make something clear before this goes any further." "Okay. I am not restarting the house payment." He sighed. "I know. I'm not paying the credit cards either. I wasn't going to ask." "Good. But I want to talk about Emma and Noah." His voice changed. "What about them? If there are legitimate expenses directly connected to their education, health, or activities, I'm willing to help." Michael was silent. "I can contribute directly." I continued. "Not by handing you money. If Emma has a school expense, I can pay the school. If Noah has a medical need, I can pay the provider. I also want to establish education accounts for both of them." "Mom, you don't have to do that." "I know. That was the point. I didn't have to. I wanted to. But there will be no connection between that help and whether Lauren lets me see them." Michael spoke softly. "I understand. Do you?" "Yes. I will never buy access to my grandchildren." "I know. And I will never threaten to stop loving them because I'm angry with their parents." Michael was quiet for several seconds. Then he said, "You're handling this better than I am." "That isn't a competition. I know." He asked if he could come over again. This time I told him yes without hesitation. He arrived after dinner. No folder, no financial statements, just Michael. We sat in the living room. He looked around at the photographs. His eyes stopped on one taken when he was about 10. Robert stood behind him holding a fishing rod while Michael displayed a fish barely larger than his hand. "Dad would be disappointed in me," he said. I didn't answer immediately. "Your father loved you." "That isn't what I said." "No." Michael looked at me. "Would he probably?" He laughed sadly. "Thanks. But disappointment isn't the same as rejection." He nodded. "I've been thinking about that day at the house." I knew which day. "I keep seeing you standing on the porch." "So do I." His eyes dropped. "I knew Lauren was going to talk to you." That surprised me. "You knew before I arrived," she told me that morning. I felt an old anger return. "And you stayed inside. I thought she was going to tell you we needed fewer visits. She told me to stop visiting completely." "I know. And when I asked you directly, you backed her." Michael covered his face briefly. "I was afraid. Of Lauren. Of my marriage falling apart." That answer softened something in me, but not enough to erase what happened. Lauren and I had been fighting constantly. Money, the kids, you, everything. "So you thought agreeing with her would save your marriage?" "Yes." At whose expense, he looked at me. Yours, and Emma's. His eyes filled. And Noah's. Yes. Michael swallowed. I'm sorry. I had heard those words from him before. This time I wanted more. What are you sorry for? He seemed surprised. I waited. For not defending you. Keep going. For letting Lauren tell the kids things that weren't true. I nodded. For pretending I didn't see what was happening, because dealing with it would have meant confronting my wife. His voice broke slightly. And for expecting you to keep helping us after I let you be pushed out. There it was. Not perfect, but honest. I leaned back. Do you know what your father used to say about silence? Michael shook his head. He said silence is sometimes just agreement without the courage to sign your name. Michael looked down. I signed it. Yes. I know. For a while neither of us spoke. Then he asked, Do you forgive me? That was harder than I expected. I loved my son. There had never been a moment when I stopped loving him. But love and forgiveness were not switches. I want to, I said. His eyes met mine. But trust doesn't repair itself because someone says sorry. He nodded slowly. I understand. You'll have to show me. I will. And not by choosing me over Lauren. He frowned. What? I don't want you taking sides like this is some contest between your mother and your wife. I want you to tell the truth when the truth is uncomfortable. Michael leaned back. That might be harder. It usually is. We both smiled slightly. Then his expression became serious. What do you want with the kids? The question hurt. Not because it was wrong, because there had been a time when nobody needed to ask. I want to be their grandmother. That's it. That's enough. He nodded. I want them to see you. My heart moved before my mind could stop it. When soon? Does Lauren agree? Michael hesitated. That hesitation told me we weren't ready. I won't sneak around her. I know. I won't let you bring them here and then make me part of another secret. I understand. If Lauren and I are going to rebuild anything, it cannot start with deception. Michael sighed. You're making this very difficult. No, I'm refusing to make it easy in the wrong way. He laughed quietly. That's something Dad would say. No, your father would have used more colorful language. That made us both laugh. For the first time in weeks, the sound didn't feel forced. Before Michael left, I handed him the yellow legal pad. He studied the 2 columns. What's this, my boundary? He read everything. When he reached the right side, he looked at me. Lifestyle. Yes, that feels judgmental. It probably is. He smiled reluctantly. Then his eyes returned to the left column. Education. I'm going to speak with David. Mom. Don't. What don't turn gratitude into an argument. His eyes filled again. Thank you. There it was. 2 words I had not heard regarding money in a long time. You're welcome. At the front door, Michael hugged me. Not the quick, distracted hug he'd given me for years. He held on. I really am sorry. I know. After he left, I returned to the kitchen. The yellow pad was gone. Michael had taken it. I hoped he showed Lauren. Not because I wanted her to see what I refused to pay, because I wanted her to understand what I would still gladly give. My love for Emma and Noah had never been the problem. The problem was that the adults had confused love with access money with obligation and help with dependence. Now those things had names. They had boundaries. And for the first time, Michael seemed willing to respect mine. 3 days later, I opened my mailbox and found a small cream-colored envelope. There was no return address. My name was written across the front in uneven handwriting. Grandma Grace. I knew immediately who had sent it. Emma. I carried the envelope inside with shaking hands. And before I even opened it, I knew whatever was written there mattered more than every financial statement we had argued about. I stood in my kitchen, holding Emma's letter for several minutes before I opened it. The envelope had been sealed crookedly with too much tape across the back. That made me smile. Emma had always believed tape solved every structural problem. When she was 7, she once repaired the torn wing of a cardboard butterfly with so much tape that the poor thing weighed more than the rest of the school project. I slipped my finger beneath the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of lined notebook paper folded twice. At the top, Emma had written, "Dear Grandma." My vision blurred before I reached the second line. I sat down. She wrote that she missed me. She wrote that Noah missed me too, although he was pretending he didn't because he was angry. She said he had asked Lauren twice whether he could call me, and had been told the adults were still working things out. Then came the part that hurt. Emma wrote that for several weeks she had believed I wanted to stay away. She thought maybe she had told me too many things. Maybe she had bothered me. Maybe Lauren was right that she relied on me too much. I covered my mouth. An 11-year-old child had been examining her own love for her grandmother as though it might be a mistake. I kept reading. I know you said you love us. Dad says you love us too. Mom says grown-ups are having problems that aren't our fault. But sometimes it still feels like somebody has to be wrong. Then near the bottom, she had written one sentence that I would remember for the rest of my life. I just want my family to stop making love feel like something we have to earn. I stopped reading. The paper fell into my lap. And I cried. Not the angry tears I had shed after Lauren closed that door. Not the lonely tears from the afternoon. I drove toward Emma's school and forced myself to turn around. These were different. They came from realizing that while 4 adults had been arguing about boundaries, mortgages, money, marriage, pride, and independence, an 11-year-old girl had understood the real problem better than any of us. We had made love feel conditional. Lauren had made access conditional. Michael had made honesty conditional on whether telling the truth would create conflict. And perhaps I had made helping too easy for so long that Michael had confused love with rescue. None of us had intended to teach Emma that lesson. But children learn from what families do, not what families claim. I read the rest. Emma asked whether we could still do puzzles someday. She said Noah wanted blueberry waffles. At the bottom, she had drawn 4 uneven hearts and signed, "Love always, Emma." I pressed the paper against my chest. Then I called Michael. He answered immediately. "Mom, did you know Emma sent me a letter?" Silence. "No. Are you sure?" "Yes." "Why, I couldn't read it aloud." "Not yet. Come over. Is everything okay?" "No." He arrived 40 minutes later. I handed him the letter. Michael stood beside my kitchen table while he read. I watched his face change. Halfway through, he sat down. When he reached that sentence, he stopped. He read it again. Then he covered his eyes with one hand. "Oh God, I said nothing. I did this. We all played a part." "No." He looked at me. "Don't make this easier for me." I understood exactly what he meant. Michael read the sentence aloud. "I just want my family to stop making love feel like something we have to earn." His voice cracked on the last word. "She's 11. I know. I thought I was protecting them from the fighting. Children know when something is wrong. I should have fixed this sooner." "Yes." He folded the letter carefully. "Can I show Lauren? It belongs to Emma." Michael nodded. "I'll ask her." He left with a photograph of the letter on his phone. That evening he called again. His voice sounded exhausted. Lauren read it. "What did she say?" "Nothing for about 10 minutes. And then she cried." I closed my eyes. "She wants to talk to the kids tomorrow." "Good." She also agreed to counseling. That surprised me. Family counseling, Lauren and me first. Then maybe all of us if the counselor thinks it helps. I felt something loosen in my chest. That sounds sensible. Then Michael said, "I want to bring Emma and Noah to see you." My heart began beating faster. When Saturday? I almost said yes immediately. Instead I asked, "Does Lauren agree?" "Yes." Really, she does. Saturday arrived slowly. I was awake before sunrise. I cleaned a house that was already clean. I rearranged the pillows twice. I bought blueberries. Then I nearly didn't make the waffles because I worried they had become too symbolic. At 9:30, a car pulled into my driveway. I was standing behind the curtain like a fool. The back door opened before Michael had completely stopped. Emma ran toward the house. Noah followed. I opened the front door. Emma hit me with enough force to make me take a step backward. Her arms locked around my waist. "Grandma." That one word nearly undid me. I held her. Oh, sweetheart. Noah crashed into us a second later. For a while, none of us said anything useful. There were tears, there was laughter. Noah accused me of not making waffles quickly enough. Then Emma suddenly pulled back. You're not leaving again, right? I crouched so we were eye level. Listen to me. She became serious. I never left because I stopped loving you. I know. Do you? She nodded. Dad told us. Good. And Mom did too. That surprised me. What did she say? Emma shrugged. She said she made some mistakes. I glanced toward Michael. He stood beside the car giving us space. I looked back at Emma. Your mother loves you. I know. And nobody is going to make you choose who you love. Emma stared at me. Promise, promise. We spent the morning doing almost nothing. It was wonderful. We ate waffles. Noah showed me a gap where he had lost a tooth. Emma brought a mystery book she wanted me to read. We started a puzzle. No interrogation. No questions about what Lauren had said at home. No attempt to make the children confirm that I had been right. I refused to turn their return into evidence against their mother. Around noon, Michael came into the kitchen while the children were in the living room. Thank you, he said. For what? Not asking them questions. Their children not witnesses. His face tightened. I wish we'd remembered that sooner. So do I. When it was time to leave, Noah wrapped himself around my arm. Can we come next Saturday? I looked at Michael. He smiled. We'll work out a schedule. Not permission, not exclusion. A schedule. It was a small difference, but it mattered. Emma hugged me at the door. Did you like my letter? No. Her face fell. I smiled. I loved it. She laughed. Then she whispered, I meant what I wrote. I know. After they left, I found a puzzle piece beneath the couch. I held it in my palm and laughed through my tears. Nothing was fixed completely. Lauren and I still had difficult conversations ahead. Michael still had debt to face. The house was still uncertain. Trust had not magically returned because 2 children ate waffles at my kitchen table. But something important had changed. We had stopped pretending the children were the problem. 2 weeks later, Michael told me he and Lauren had attended their first counseling session. Then a second. Lauren began allowing the children to call me again without treating every conversation like a threat. Visits returned slowly, predictably. No secret arrangements. No children carrying messages between adults. And the house payment, I still didn't restart it. Nobody asked me to. That mattered too. For the first time, Michael and Lauren were beginning to separate their financial problems from my relationship with Emma and Noah. But the biggest change came several weeks later. Michael called and told me they had made decisions about the house, the cars, Lauren's work, and their spending. Real decisions. Painful ones. They're going to change how we live, he said. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Lauren said the same thing. That surprised me. Then Michael added something else. She wants to come see you. About money, no. The house, no. Then what? He paused. To apologize. I looked at Emma's letter now, tucked safely inside the drawer beside Robert's old photographs. Some repairs begin with money. Others begin when somebody finally takes responsibility. And I was about to find out whether Lauren was truly ready to do that. Lauren came to my house on a Sunday afternoon. This time she wasn't standing behind a boundary. Neither was I. When I opened the door, she was alone. No Michael, no children, no folder of bills. She carried nothing except her purse. Hi, Grace. Hello, Lauren. For a second, we simply looked at each other. Then I stepped aside. Come in. She followed me into the kitchen. I offered coffee. This time she accepted. While I poured it, I noticed how nervous she seemed. She kept rubbing her thumb along the edge of her wedding ring. Finally, she said, Michael told you we've made some decisions. He said you're changing things. Lauren gave a small laugh. That's one way of putting it. She wrapped both hands around the coffee mug. We sold my SUV. I raised my eyebrows. Lauren had loved that vehicle. It was less than 3 years old and probably cost more than Robert and I had paid for our first house. How do you feel about that? Embarrassed that it bothered me as much as it did. I smiled slightly. That sounds honest. We had 2 car payments. We didn't need 2 expensive cars. No. We canceled the country club membership too. I hadn't even known they belonged to one. Lauren must have seen the surprise on my face. Exactly. She shook her head. We kept telling ourselves all these things were normal because people around us had them. Normal can be expensive. That should be printed on every credit card. I laughed. So did she. The tension eased slightly. Then she told me the rest. Michael had started interviewing for positions with a higher guaranteed base salary instead of depending so heavily on commissions. Lauren had accepted a full-time design position with a commercial firm in Richmond. It wasn't as glamorous as running her own business, but it provided steady income, health benefits, and predictable hours. She planned to keep only a few freelance clients on the side. They had canceled subscriptions, stopped eating out several nights a week, created a repayment plan for the credit cards. For the first time in years, Michael and Lauren were sitting together every Sunday evening and reviewing every dollar. We hated each other the first 2 times, Lauren admitted. That sounds healthy. She smiled. Our counselor said something similar. And the house. Her smile disappeared. We almost listed it. I waited. We met with a realtor. We looked at smaller homes farther out. And once we sold the SUV and changed the rest of the budget, the numbers started working. Barely comfortably enough if we're disciplined. I nodded. Then you have a choice. Exactly. There was something different in the way she said it. Not entitlement. Responsibility. Lauren stared into her coffee. I used to think keeping that house proved we had made it. Made it where? She laughed softly. I don't know anymore. That answer told me counseling might actually be working. The first time I walked into that house, she continued, I saw the kitchen in the backyard and the school district, and I thought this is what successful families look like. I remember. You helped us get it. Yes. And then you kept helping us keep it. For a while. For 4 years. I said nothing. Lauren looked at me. I didn't know. I believe you. I should have known. That was between you and Michael. I still should have known what was happening in my own household. I couldn't argue with that. Then she surprised me. I'm not here to ask you to start paying again. I didn't think you were. Yes, you did. I smiled. Maybe a little. I don't blame you. She took a breath. I'm here because I owe you an apology. The room became very quiet. I didn't rescue her from the discomfort. I had spent too many years rescuing everyone. Lauren continued. I was cruel to you. Her voice trembled. I told myself I was protecting my children, but I wasn't. I waited. I was protecting myself. From what feeling second? She looked toward the refrigerator where I had pinned a recent drawing from Noah. When Emma came to you with something before she came to me, I felt rejected. That must have hurt. It did. But Emma wasn't rejecting you. I know that now. Lauren wiped beneath one eye. I made her responsible for my insecurity. That was difficult to hear, but necessary. And I made you responsible too. She swallowed. I told you not to visit. Yes. I told the children you needed distance because I didn't want to admit I was the one creating it. Yes. I excluded you from Noah's birthday. My throat tightened. Yes. And when you stopped paying that bill, I was furious because I thought you were punishing me. Lauren gave a bitter little laugh. But I wasn't angry when you were paying it without recognition. That sentence mattered, perhaps more than she knew. I acted like your generosity was something we had earned. No, I said, something you were entitled to. Lauren nodded. That's worse. Yes. She looked down. I'm sorry, Grace. Not, I'm sorry you were hurt. Not, I'm sorry things got complicated. I'm sorry, specific, clean. For several seconds I couldn't speak. Then I said, thank you. Lauren looked up. Do you forgive me? It was the same question Michael had asked, and my answer was similar. I'm willing to. Her face changed slightly. But trust takes longer, I added. I know. Things will not go back exactly the way they were. I don't expect them to. I won't become the automatic babysitter again. Okay. I won't solve every emergency. Lauren nodded. And I'm not restarting that payment. She almost smiled. I figured that one out. Good. I don't want you to. That surprised me. Why? Because if you start again, I think Michael and I will always know there's an exit door whenever things get uncomfortable. I stared at her. A few months earlier, Lauren had accused me of hurting her children because I refused to pay. Now she was telling me not to. What changed? She thought for a moment. Emma's letter. I looked toward the hallway where I kept the original safely stored. She wrote that love shouldn't feel like something you earn. Yes. I realized I had been doing exactly that to everyone. Lauren's voice softened. I wanted the kids to prove I was their most important person. I wanted Michael to prove he chose me over you. And when you stopped paying, I wanted you to prove you still loved us by starting again. I had never thought about it that way. And none of those things actually proved love, she said. No, they proved fear. For the first time I saw Lauren not as the woman who had taken my grandchildren away, but as a frightened woman who had made terrible choices while trying to control what she feared losing. Understanding her didn't excuse what she had done, but it made forgiveness possible. I reached across the table. Lauren looked at my hand, then placed hers over it. I never wanted your place, I said. I know. And I never wanted Michael choosing between us. I know that too. Do you? She smiled sadly. I'm learning. We sat like that for a moment. Then Lauren laughed. What the counselor said something you would like. Oh, she said boundaries work in both directions. I laughed too. I do like your counselor. I thought you might. Before she left, Lauren stopped beside the front door, the same kind of doorway where everything had broken months earlier. Grace. Yes. The kids want you at dinner next Sunday. I smiled. Do you? Lauren considered the question. Then she smiled back. Yes. That mattered more than if she had answered quickly. Then I'll come. And you don't have to bring anything. No blueberry waffles. She laughed. No. Noah would disown me. When the door closed behind her, I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter. Over the following months, Michael found a new position with better guaranteed pay. Lauren settled into her full-time job. They attacked the credit card balances one by one. They kept the house. But it stopped being a symbol of success. It became what it should have been all along. A place to live. A place where people could make mistakes. A place where people could apologize. A place where children did not have to earn love. And the strangest part was that by refusing to continue supporting their independence financially, I had finally given Michael and Lauren the chance to build real independence themselves. The house survived. More importantly, so did the family. But rebuilding a family is not a single conversation. It happens through ordinary moments repeated long enough to become trust again. Nearly 1 year after Lauren stood in her doorway and told me to stop visiting my grandchildren, I found myself driving down that same familiar street. This time there was no box sitting nervously on my lap, no uncertainty about whether I was welcome. And when I reached their house, the person who opened the door was Lauren. Almost 1 year after Lauren told me to stop visiting my grandchildren, I drove down the same tree-lined street toward the house I had once helped Michael and Lauren buy. The neighborhood hadn't changed much. The same children rode bicycles along the sidewalks. The same oak trees shaded the road. The community pool was crowded with families enjoying one of those warm Virginia afternoons that made summer feel reluctant to leave. But I had changed. That surprised me more than anything. A year earlier, driving toward that house had made me anxious. I had measured my behavior against Lauren's rules before I even reached the driveway. Had I called early enough? Was I bringing something I hadn't been asked to bring? Was I staying too long? Was I making Emma too dependent on me? Was Noah too excited to see me? I had somehow allowed myself to believe that loving my grandchildren required constant permission. That Sunday, none of those questions followed me. I had been invited, not tolerated, not summoned because someone needed childcare. Invited. I pulled into the driveway. Before I had even turned off the engine, the front door opened. Emma came running outside. She was 12 now, taller than she had been the year before, her hair bouncing behind her. Grandma Noah appeared seconds later. You're late. I looked at the dashboard. I'm 3 minutes early. That counts as late when you're bringing dessert. I didn't bring dessert. He stopped dramatically. What? Emma rolled her eyes. He's joking. I am not. I stepped out of the car and hugged them both. Then I looked toward the house. Lauren stood in the doorway. For a brief moment, the memory came back with such clarity that it almost stole my breath. Lauren standing in that same doorway, her arm against the frame, the box of blueberry waffles in my hands, Emma crying on the stairs, Noah being called back. You need to stop visiting the children for a while. The memory still hurt. Healing doesn't erase what happened. It simply changes how much power the memory has over what happens next. Lauren smiled. Come in, Grace. They've been waiting for you. I looked at her. There was no performance in her expression, no tension, no hidden warning, just an invitation. Thank you. I walked through the door. This time nobody stood in my way. Michael was in the kitchen finishing dinner. He had changed too. 6 months earlier, he had accepted a new position with a medical technology company. His base salary was higher, his commissions smaller, but more predictable. And for the first time in years, he wasn't building the household budget around income he hoped to earn. Lauren was still working full-time at the commercial design firm. To my surprise, she liked it. I sleep better, she once admitted. They had paid off 2 credit cards completely and were aggressively working on the others. The expensive SUV was gone. The country club membership was gone. Several weekend trips were gone. The children didn't seem to care. Noah still worried mainly about pizza. Emma still worried mainly about books, school, and friendships. The things Michael and Lauren had once believed made their family successful turned out to matter least to the 2 people they had supposedly been providing them for. The house remained. But now Michael and Lauren paid every expense connected to it, including that bill. The quiet one. The payment I had canceled was never restarted. Not once. At first I checked my statements each month and noticed the money sitting there. Eventually I stopped noticing. It wasn't mine to think about anymore. Instead, I had opened education accounts for Emma and Noah. Michael and Lauren knew about them. So did the children in the simplest terms. Grandma was putting something aside for their future. No strings, no conditions, no expectation that generosity bought me authority. That distinction had become important to all of us. During dinner, Noah told me an elaborate story about a science project. Emma interrupted him 4 times. Lauren told Emma to let her brother finish. Emma complained. Michael dropped a fork. Noah spilled water. It was wonderfully ordinary. At one point, Emma looked across the table. Grandma, can I come over Wednesday? I glanced automatically at Lauren. Old habits. Lauren noticed. She smiled. You don't have to look at me like you're requesting diplomatic clearance. Michael laughed. So that's a yes, Emma asked. Lauren pointed her fork at her daughter. If your homework is finished, it will be. And your room. Emma groaned. I smiled. Your mother's rules. Emma sighed. Fine. There it was. A healthy boundary. Not a wall, not a punishment. Just parenting. After dinner, Emma pulled me into the living room. Wait here. She ran upstairs. When she returned, she carried something framed. It was her letter. Not the original, a copy. She had decorated the border with small painted flowers. Near the bottom was the sentence that had changed all of us. I just want my family to stop making love feel like something we have to earn. I looked at her. Why did you frame this, Mom did? I turned. Lauren was standing near the kitchen doorway. She looked slightly embarrassed. I keep another copy in my office. My throat tightened. Why? Lauren walked closer. Because sometimes I still need the reminder. I understood. So did I. Michael came into the room. We all do. For a moment, the 4 of us stood there, looking at the words of an 11-year-old girl who had somehow said what none of the adults could. Then Noah shouted from the kitchen, "Who ate the last brownie?" The moment ended, which was probably appropriate. Families don't heal in speeches, they heal in ordinary days. Wednesday visits returned. Not every Wednesday. Sometimes Emma had activities. Sometimes I had book club. That mattered too. I no longer canceled my entire life whenever Michael needed something. I still volunteered at the library. I still had lunch with Patricia. I still worked in Robert's garden. My grandchildren were a precious part of my life. They were no longer my entire life. And strangely, that made our relationship healthier. Michael stopped calling me whenever money became uncomfortable. Sometimes he called just to talk. The first time he did, I kept waiting for the request. There wasn't one. Lauren and I never became the kind of women who spoke every morning or went shopping together every weekend. That wasn't necessary. What developed between us was quieter. Respect. She asked rather than assumed. So did I. If she disagreed with me, she said it directly. If I thought she was being unfair, I no longer swallowed the feeling for months. Trust returned slowly. Not because we forgot what happened, because we stopped repeating it. That evening, when it was time for me to leave, Noah hugged me first. Emma walked me outside. Lauren followed. At the car, she said, "Next Sunday if I'm free." Her eyebrows rose. "Oh, look at you." I laughed. "I have a life." "I know." There was affection in her voice. Michael came onto the porch. "Drive safe, Mom." "I will." I got into the car. Before starting the engine, I looked at the house. For years, I had believed helping them keep it was one of the greatest gifts I could give my family. I had been wrong. The greater gift was stepping back far enough to let Michael and Lauren become responsible for their own lives. And the greatest gift I gave myself was understanding that my place in the family could never be measured by what I paid. I thought about that white envelope in my desk. The bill I had once paid automatically. The bill Michael had forgotten was a gift. The bill Lauren barely knew existed until it disappeared. I never paid it again. Not because I wanted them to suffer. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I wanted to teach Lauren a lesson. I stopped because love should never require one person to quietly carry responsibilities that belong to another. Lauren had asked for boundaries. Eventually we all got them. Hers, mine, Michael's. Even the children learned that boundaries could exist without making love disappear. I started the car. Emma waved from the walkway. Noah appeared behind the window, still apparently investigating the missing brownie. Lauren stood beside Michael on the porch. A year earlier, I had driven away from that house believing I might be losing my family. Instead, we had lost something else. Entitlement, silence, resentment. The belief